I am speaking today with Brendan Loughnane, PFL featherweight semifinalist, who is back in action August 23rd in Washington, D.C., taking on Kai Kamaka III. Obviously, a big one coming up. We'll get this one out of the way real quick. Just how's camp been? How's everything going ahead of this fight?
Fantastic. Looking forward to getting to the States this week.
Well, when we talk about going back to the semifinals, obviously you've been there before. 2022, you won it all, of course. 2023 didn't go your way. We'll get to that. But is there anything you're doing differently in preparation for this one?
No, nothing at all. Exactly the same coaches, same place, same ethos, same diet. Everything's the same. Coming off two TKOs this year, looking better than ever. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly the line I was thinking of. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, last year was a bit of a stumbling block. Didn't go the way you
Yeah.
had hoped. But were there any lessons you took away from that? Even if it was just, how difficult it is to defend a title in the PFL, because it's not just a title defense after you win the belt. You got to kind of win your way back to the championship.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? This thing starts in April and ends in November. Um, and for the last 3 years before that, I'd been stuck in it. So to be able to, have some time off was nice. Going out in the preliminary rounds, I got to have 10 months where I didn't fight, and that's the longest I've had off in a long time. So I got to regroup, do a few personal things that I needed to do, and come back to this season fresh. And this is the result.
So a bit of a silver lining then. And then, like you said, this season, two finishes, hard to argue with the results, but how happy were you just with that regular season performance overall?
Yeah, great, great. Really happy with both performances. Everything I've been working on over the last 10 months has all been coming to fruition. Feel like I'm at the peak of my athletic endeavors, and I'm excited for next week.
When you go into the semis, it's no longer you need the points. It's no longer, oh, I gotta knock this guy out in the first round to make the playoffs. Now it's just win and move on. So does that change how you approach the fight, be it in training or mentally?
Not really, no. Every fight to me is just a fight. I never look at the point system anyway. So for me, it's just another day at the office.
And then obviously, we're going to get to Kai in a moment, but the other side of the bracket, I think a lot of people, if they had a looked at this field at the start of the season, see yourself, see Gabriel Braga, and go, man, that could be a final right there. Is that what you were looking at as well? Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love to fight either of the two guys in the final, but I've made the mistake in the past of looking past opponents, so I'm not looking past Kai Kamaka and what he brings to the table. So let's get that out of the way. Whoever wins that side, I'll be ready for either of them, gentlemen.
Do you have a prediction in that fight? I know a lot of people want to see you fight Gabriel, but obviously Timur is no slouch.
Tough fight. Very, very tough fight on both sides. You've got a world class striker versus a world class wrestler. It's whoever can implement on the night.
And a tough fight for yourself as well. Kai Kamaka, maybe a little bit of an underdog. I'm not sure if you agree with that when he came into the season out of the Bellator system. So maybe not as well versed in the tournament format as some of the guys like yourself. But, what did you make of his performance this year?
Yeah, scrappy fights. Tough fight with Bubba, tough fight with Pedro. Two very, very difficult fights. I'm coming off two very clean finishes. For me, we're both in very different realms right now.
And do you just feel like when you say in different realms, you just feel that your level's above in this, or is that part of the championship caliber that you have?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a champion, and I'm ready to go back and reclaim the throne this year.
So when you look at Kai, when you look at this fight, how do you see this playing out?
I feel like I'm superior in every area to Kai. That's not being no disrespect to him. I have more TKOs than he has wins in MMA. You know what I mean? Like, I've been around this sport for 17 years. I just know my levels, 29 and 5 pro, 7 and 0 amateur, 2 on tough. I'm vastly experienced, and I'm going to bring all that wealth and experience into this fight.
And when you talk about that experience, you're a ways away from that contender series showing now. Do you ever kind of marvel at, that was a bit of a low in a sense in your career. Do you ever marvel at how far you have come in really just a few years?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it used to be the first thing that got mentioned in interviews. Now it's the last thing that you mentioned. So, I've done something right over the last few years, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and obviously the chance to win a second championship, really, to be a two-time PFL champ. The money is there. I should mention that's a nice chunk of change. But just to have that for your legacy, what does that mean to you?
Takes a special breed to win this thing twice. It really, really, really does. That means 4 consecutive wins. It's not easy. That means 8 consecutive wins, really, to win two in a row. It's not an easy task, but it's one that people like me are set out to do. I've set out to do it this year. I'm doing very good. I'm coming off 2 TKOs, 2 clean performances, and let's hope it continues like this all the way through.
Well, like you said, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You don't want to look past Kai, but at the same time, you want to have goals, right? If this season goes your way, how do you see the future playing out? Because you're 34 now, I believe. You're not old by any stretch of the imagination, but in terms of fighting, you might go to your late 30s, early
Yeah,
40s, depending. Do you see yourself doing another season with the win? Do you see yourself looking at the Super Fight League now that that's kicking off with the Ngannou card in October? How do you kind of envision things from here out?
I would love to get this title. It'd mean the world to me to do it twice over, and then I'd like to fight Pitbull for his belt, and then that would be the goal. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. You don't ask, you don't get. So it'd be a dream of mine to win this in November, get the second belt, and then fight Pitbull like early next year. That would be amazing.
Well, that would be very interesting. Patricio Pitbull, of course, the Bellator featherweight champion. And that's a possibility now that the PFL owns Bellator. I imagine you see that as if they continue the champs versus champs card.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So let's see what happens with that. Nothing's guaranteed. I've got a hard fight in Kai Kamaka, but that's the goals, right? You got to set goals.
Absolutely. One thing I saw earlier this year, you did a little bit of sparring with Conor McGregor, and I read that you thought, once that hard sparring got going, you kind of got that confidence back in your chin after the knockout last year. I'm curious, twofold, did getting into a live fight help that even more? Like you're 100% confident now, and did you get to do any more work with Conor?
Yeah, I mean, it was great, and there's nothing like a Conor McGregor backhand to chest if your chin still working, right? So it's definitely working. Um, and no, I've not got any more work with him, but we're still in contact back and forth. And I'm sure once he gets something signed, I can be part of that camp again, hopefully.
A lot of people have been talking about Connor. Obviously, he was supposed to come back in June for UFC 303. Didn't happen. The foot injury, but when you look at that matchup with Chandler, how do you see him doing in that?
I think it's light work for Conor. I honestly do. I think Chandler is absolutely tailor made for someone, a sharpshooter like Conor, sniper. So let's see.
Well, when we talk about Connor, we talk about the money in the sport. And I think if just a few years ago, before the PFL, Connor was making big money, a couple of other people, but the kind of opportunities that you had weren't there. And then the PFL comes along and has this $1 million prize at the end of the season. I mean, how much has that changed things for you? Just the possibility. I mean, you've actually gone and done it, but even the possibility of the money to keep you motivated, to keep you training, full force.
Yeah, I mean, I've changed my family's whole life, like uh, what an amazing thing to do with mixed martial arts, right? Like back in the day, I remember when I had my first fight, I got £150. And then fast forward 16 years, I'm making $1 million. You know what I mean? So I've come a long way in the sport. Sometimes I have to pinch myself, but I'm ready to do it all over again this year. I know what it takes.
It's a long way from the days when you worked a job on the side and kind of, or even just trained on the side, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I used to work security from 9 p.m. all the way to like 5 a.m. And then I'd go home, maybe sleep 3 or 4 hours, and then train all day. And that was my life for 5 years. So I know what it's like to come through the hard grind. And that's why I appreciate every single second of this.
And I imagine that as much as it's nice to be past it, that definitely added some character and added to the drive.
100%. I mean, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. My story, I would not change a thing.
Well, that is good to hear. It's been a fantastic journey. I'm glad I got to see a good part of it. Brendan, I'll ask you one more before I let you go. Just give
Yeah.
us a prediction for this fight, August 23rd, Kai Kamaka.
I mean, I just see fireworks. You've got two strikers laying it all on the line, the Hawaiian versus the Irish. You know, this one can't fail. That's why we're main event. Let's go.
No way this is a boring fight, Brendan. Looking forward to it in Washington, D.C. Best of luck in the fight.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.